It's so funny. I can tell when my team is using AI now. We had to train people and say, okay, make sure you're not actually pasting the entire data set into this right now, please. It's not ready yet.
Even if there wasn't a break, we don't want to even seem like there's anything we're doing that's a break as part of this.
As an entrepreneur, what do you want to know about AI?
It's time to wield this new technology to create the workplace and the work life that you want.
Please welcome Reid Hoffman.
Part of the way that I've been describing artificial intelligence is a steam engine of the mind.
The fear was around copying or plagiarism.
When I think about all of the possibilities with AI, honestly, I get a little overwhelmed.
I think of AI as really like an additional assistant.
At Bottle, we integrate AI with our marketing and customer support.
What do you think would be the best way forward with this?
This is Masters of Scale.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Masters of Scale live strategy session in alliance with Capital One Business. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jodine Dorsey. I am the VP of Live Events here at Wait What, the company that brings you Masters of Scale to life. These live strategy sessions are the perfect place for the Masters of Scale community to meet, share ideas, and co-elevate in real time. If you've ever attended a strategy session before, welcome back. For some of you, this is your first time joining us, and you may have found us through Capital One Business. Capital One Business is our premier brand partner and thought partner in serving our community of entrepreneurs. This live session is designed to help you focus on strategy for your own business. Over the course of our show, 4 entrepreneurs will ask questions of our Masters of Scale host, Reid Hoffman. I think you'll see many of your own challenges reflected in their questions. We also have a special guest joining Reid for our session today, but more on that exciting addition in just a moment. As an entrepreneur, what do you want to know about AI? What are your largest challenges with AI? I want to start by welcoming a very special guest to the virtual stage. Cynthia is a senior vice president at Capital One Business and head of the Beyond the Card team, focusing on new products, services, and innovation for B2B customers. She also serves as a mentor with Techstars Accelerators, supporting entrepreneurs looking to advance innovation. And she's a mentor for Endeavor, an organization dedicated to high-impact entrepreneurship around the world. Let's welcome Cynthia Lowe from Capital One Business. Hi, Cynthia. We're thrilled to have you here today.
So thrilled to be here, Jodine.
Good. Each strategy session begins with a central theme to help us focus the overall discussion. Can you please share with us today's theme?
Of course, the theme today is Your Workplace Reimagined with AI. AI's seismic impact on the future of work is already underway. From administration to ideation to data analysis, AI is transforming our perception of the office. In tonight's strategy session, we are going to focus on how business leaders can take advantage of this revolutionary shift. It's time to wield this new technology to create the workplace and the work life that you want. Before we dive in, though, I have to give credit to Reid Hoffman for the shift in my own career and the reason I actually went to the startup world. After reading his book, The Startup of You, I realized that I wasn't on the track that I saw myself being successful in 10 years. And after spending a decade in traditional finance, I took a huge leap of faith and jumped from a hedge fund to a tech startup in the medical industry. After spending 10 years in advisory roles, I finally became an operator. Many of the lessons I learned from that book I still hold very close today, especially ensuring that you have a competitive advantage and take calculated risks.
What an inspiring story. I'm guessing Reid is probably like blushing in the green room listening in. This is exactly why he's our host. For this strategy session, we're answering our community members' questions about AI, how to use it, how to integrate it into their business, how to best benefit from it. How is the Capital One Business thinking about AI in the workplace?
At Capital One Business, we are really focused on helping businesses do more business. And by that, I mean focusing on the things that help them grow and scale and helping automate or provide seamless solutions for their pain points. Up until now, this has meant providing businesses with robust product suite, including credit cards, digital payment management systems, and discounts and benefits. But now we'll be looking to leverage AI in all sorts of ways to offer personalized insights and analysis, like whether a business can afford to pay an invoice on time, or the impact of hiring 5 more salespeople, or investing in a new piece of equipment. With insights like these at their fingertips, we hope to help our customers run their businesses much more easily and efficiently.
Well, it's interesting because some of our members have also expressed a concern that AI might impact jobs. Given your extensive experience developing and growing innovative technologies across a variety of markets, how have you seen new technologies impact the workforce?
I think it's a really important question and one that understandably comes up a lot. There's no question that AI will have an impact on how we all work. But when developed and applied thoughtfully with human users at the center, I think AI can ultimately be used to augment, complement, and elevate the capabilities of the workforce, enabling a focus on work that's high leverage and delivers maximum value. It's also true that people still need and want to develop relationships and human connection. So in some ways, it's more important than ever to build relationships and create touch points for human connection within and across businesses.
That's right. That's right. And I want to reiterate your point here. AI cannot replace relationships and human connection. And that's why live events like our strategy sessions are important more than ever. Well, Cynthia, thank you so much for jumpstarting our conversation with your insights and your wisdom. We so appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Excited to sit back and watch.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, Cynthia. All right. Well, it's time to introduce our host for the evening. He's been featured in Time 100 as a subject matter expert in the world of AI. He's the co-host of his very own podcast, Possible, which explores the possibilities of AI with his co-host, Aria Finger. He's also the author of Impromptu, Amplifying Our Humanity Through AI, a book which he actually wrote with ChatGPT-4. And of course, he's our host of our very own podcast, Masters of Scale. Please welcome Reid Hoffman. Hi, Reid.
It's awesome to see you.
It is so good. I'm matching your shirt this evening. I'm really excited. It's been a while. So good to see you.
I always look forward to these.
Thank you. Thank you. And we look forward to having you. And I just want to say that I watched your commencement speech at Bologna. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Bologna. It's like bologna, but Bologna.
Bologna, yes. That business school commencement speech was outstanding. It was so invigorating. And what a moment. I encourage everyone, if you haven't watched it, please look it up. It's on YouTube. You could check it out for yourself. You made a statement, and I wanted to touch base on the statement. You said, "Today we are entering another historically generative period." Why do you think this exact moment is a historical period that we are entering?
There's a couple reasons. And obviously in the commencement speeches, you give a very shorthand because you're trying to honor the moment for these graduates who are now, commencing with the rest of their life. But one thing is to look at kind of the fact that technology changes are the things that massively change human life. Frequently, this is described as general purpose technologies, which then evolve, steam engine, with automobile, telecommunications, electricity, et cetera. And part of the way that I've been describing artificial intelligence is a steam engine of the mind, a cognitive GPS as a way of doing this. The other part of it, part of the reason it was relevant for a commencement speech was technology is also, people don't quite realize this, define generations of people. Because, you've got the internet generation, smartphone generation, but also, of course, part of what happened is, the way things changed with the printing press, the way things changed, with the automobile, the way things change with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And actually some of it, even though we tend to use, cohorts of, which thing were you born into and what was the network, there's also the technological framework. And what brings these together is one of the things I put in Impromptu and other things, which is, to some degree, rather than thinking of ourselves as Homo sapiens, think of ourselves as Homo techne. We're defined by our technology. We evolve. Like, for example, one of the things is, this is technology. It's not just having clear vision for technology, but clear vision is technology, as these things go. And so we evolve ourselves as human beings through our technology for how it works. Like this is a Whoop and, clothing and mics and everything else. And that was all part of it. So that was a very long answer to what you were probably anticipating as a question. But that's the arc. And right now we're coming up on, of course, Generation AI as part of what you were noting.
That's right. That's exactly why what I asked earlier in the green room. It's like, imagine a whole generation now that only knows AI technology. They don't know anything prior to that. So this is going to be interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Reid. Ready for some strategy session questions?
Always. Super fun.
Perfect. Our first question comes to us from Salwa Nur Mohammed. Salwa is the founder and CEO at Fourth Brain, a company that trains engineers in AI and machine learning. Salwa was also a member of our early stage cohort at the inaugural Masters of Scale Summit. She is joining us from Palo Alto, California. Welcome, Salwa.
Hi, Reid. At Fourth Brain, we train AI engineers, and our graduates tell us that they're very happy with their skills, their salary, everything is great, except for one part of their job that could be better. They wish they were using more AI and more often at work, and it was more officially recognized at their companies. The blocker is usually their skip-level managers and decision makers who haven't always known whether to or how to allow AI to be used at work. AI isn't on the budget because the ROI is unknown. It's not on the roadmap because the impact is unknown, and there isn't always a policy set. Now, we offer a course to business leaders to learn more about AI, but how else do you think we can help engineers aid their decision makers to support them incorporating AI into the everyday business?
Well, it's a great question and not a surprise. We've actually got some, I think, forthcoming Masters of Scale, podcast on questions very resemble to this because it's, the questions around how do you use it for personal scale, how do you integrate it in your business and set of things. And it's also, of course, part of the reason why I wrote Impromptu, which, was to kind of say, here is how to use AI in ways to be amplified. It's amplification intelligence in terms of what you're doing. And I was addressing, kind of where all the criticism was, education, journalism, a bunch of other things, and then doing some things that were interesting for me. How do I amplify my own work, like writing a book with AI? Now, here's some thoughts for kind of summaries of those answers. One macro framework is to try to get them to experiment. Because one of the things is I find that once people start getting into AI, you've probably found this too, they begin to realize, oh, this is how I could use it. This is the kinds of things I could do. This is how it plays. Another one is, could they kind of lead a demo, right? Like where they go, okay, I want to do a demo for my teammates for the business, show them something interesting or set a challenge of something to do where maybe you could show something amazing. Because, in the very early days when I was demonstrating to people before ChatGPT came out, it was like, look, this thing can do any number of things that you wouldn't think it'd be able to do. So like when I gave my commencement speech at Bologna, which Jodine was asking me about, I then immediately released the transcript in 70 languages, including Klingon, right? As a way to kind of say, okay, look at the kind of things that suddenly you're able to do. And so kind of shortening that. Now, the order of things to think about this is first kind of show the upside. Too often, the way that people try to get this transformation is that they start with a downside, like, oh no, don't worry about X. Don't worry, it's going to replace a job. Don't worry about the fact that it's maybe there's some data privacy concerns. Don't start with the downside. Start with the upsides. Start with oh gosh, it could be X. Because once I go, oh, the upside's really interesting, I want to help fix what the downsides are. I want to experiment with it, try it, make stuff happen. Now, one question that kind of occurs to me in what you're saying is, you have a whole network of people, your course with the business engineers, course with the business leaders and the engineers. What have you seen people doing in answer to your question? Like what experiments have people run? And is there one or two of them that is particularly interesting that might be able to be built upon? And maybe not yet, but since you're making it happen, I always love to ask entrepreneurs this kind of like, what do you see in the very forefront question?
That is an excellent point, and I liked your idea around the demo and really starting with the positive rather than the negative. As we're in education, we hear this quite a lot. When it first came out, ChatGPT first came out, the fear was around copying or plagiarism, that kind of thing, rather than let's reinvent assessment in a way that's really going to be creative, right? And the idea of starting projects that are small to be able to see the ROI quickly. So we've seen some programs or some projects that are done within the short duration of our program. For example, things around environmental effects or how you can automate certain processes around farming and then really get that data out. Depending on the company, because it can go anywhere from the legal field to manufacturing, you name it, trying to figure out what parts of the legal profession let's say research can be automated, but with the right kind of data, right? So those kinds of projects that we see, and then being able to, I like another part that you really said around bringing the engineers and the business leaders together. So one of the things we advocate for our business leaders course is this 1+1 or 1+2 concept. Like if you're the leader coming in, bring in someone else who's an engineer on your team that maybe you don't get to work with regularly and have a project that you work together on. And I think I'm going to push for that more now that you mention it. And I like that it resonates.
Thank you very much, Salwa.
Thank you, Reid.
Thank you, Salwa. Thank you, Reid, for that response. All right, our next question comes from Jen Henderson, who is the founder and CEO of Tilt. Tilt stands for Talent and Leave Technology. It's a leave of absence platform that makes it easy for employees to take time away from work when life happens. Jen was also a member of the early stage cohort at the inaugural Masters of Scale Summit, and she's joining us from Fort Collins, Colorado. Jen, take it away.
Hi, Reid. So Tilt has long been powered by a self-learning AI-based knowledge graph, which we use to amplify our mission of truly personalizing the leave of absence experience. But even with this, we are also seeking other tools and ways to use AI. I've heard you call AI a catalytic tool, and I've heard your advice to experiment often, and I 100% agree. But when I think about all of the possibilities with AI, honestly, I get a little overwhelmed about all that's out there, from older tools like OCR to newer ones like LLMs and generative AI. The drums are beating louder and louder every day to integrate this technology, and we don't want to miss it. So how do we crystallize and prioritize our expanded approach to using AI during this really overwhelming but transformational moment, knowing that we can't experiment with everything at once and have limited resources?
Well, not surprising, another great question, because once, you kind of start with you must experiment, then the question is, well, there's a lot of things to experiment with. So how do you start? And you don't want to be doing the wrong experiments, given that as you mentioned, drumbeat, the time's going, and, things are kind of moving forward ahead in this. And so the general kind of framework for thinking about this is to think either when you start your experiments, it's either with the things that would be most powerful for your business or are the most easy to experiment with. And obviously, it's totally irrelevant and easy doesn't fit. But it might be that, we don't know which of these is relevant, but this one's really easy. And so it's cheap and therefore can move on and experiment. And so you look at those two frameworks. Now, my presumptive from the kind of the old to the new is that the most powerful ones are the current ones, generative AI with LLM. And so, that's where my reflex would be, not knowing in detail the Tilt, kind of business and where the knowledge graphs come in and all the rest. But, and would it be like a chat companion for the people, leave of absence, inflection, like, my own inflection or something else, as a way of doing it, meta prompting around it? Could it be, kind of analysis of forms or information and kind of scripting stuff? Things like Adept might be helpful or doing stuff with. But it might, these are just, tossing darts blindly, because you will know this, much better than I do. But I would tend to think that on the most powerful side of kind of the framework, it would probably be somewhere in that zone, but there may be something wildly different, may not even be generative AI or LLMs. And then on the easy, it may be things that are already close to things you're integrated with. Like if you're like saying, well, we've been doing these AI knowledge-based graphs, and now we're just going to take, kind of a simple API, from OpenAI or Microsoft or something else, and we're going to, process a bunch of information in or generate some specific information where we think, there's information that's lacking in the knowledge graph, and it just kind of, it's a quick prompt answer, and we kind of bootstrap that stuff in. Maybe that's easier. But this leads to my question for you, because one of the things frequently when I'm working with entrepreneurs and asking them questions, kind of the first question to start with is what would be your answer to the question? Like if you just said, look, I know that there's a ton out there and you don't know, but if you were to hazard kind of like looking at it, this framework otherwise, and you say, I would try this, I would experiment with this, what would your answer be?
I love that question. I think it's really around the amplification of leaves being for you and personalized by you. And I think at its heart, that's what AI really excels at, is being able to take a tremendous amount of disparate information and figure out this is a probable, in our world, leave of absence plan that makes the most sense for what's unique to you. So we get really excited about simplifying and bringing the human back to leave, which is one of our core tenets, and AI really allows us to do that much faster than ever before.
Yep, I completely agree, and I think that personalization gives me a sense that you have a very good sense of the customer. So, thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Reid.
Thank you, Jen, for your question. Reid, we have a couple more entrepreneurs lined up to strategize with you, but right now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a break and introduce the audience to a new game show. So I'll see you in a bit. Masters of Scale, we love a good game show. And since today is all about AI, it's time for us to introduce our new AI-themed game show called ChatGPT versus Reid. For this game show, all of you are the contestants. I'm going to present a question along with two answers. Answer A, answer B. One of the answers is from our very own Reid Hoffman. The other answer is an AI-generated response. It is your job to guess which response was said by the real Reid Hoffman and explain why you think that. Our first question was submitted by Stephen, the CEO of Innovets. Besides AI, what else should businesses focus on for the future? Response A, building adaptive, ethical cultures focused on developing talent, advancing sustainability, and solving problems creatively should remain core to the future-focused businesses. Or B, focus on the three categories: business operations, global challenges, and other technological advancements. This is getting a little tougher than you thought, huh? Remember, you are choosing which answer came from the real Reid Hoffman and why. We're going to have some thinking music from our composers Ryan and Hayes Holiday, the Holiday Brothers. All right, dynamic duo, bring in the music. Thank you, Holiday Brothers. I hope you finished your thought and submitted your answer. So the response was B. Congratulations to all of you who chose B. You won bragging rights for the first round, but don't brag for too long because we're now ready for round 2. Here's the question. Which AI capabilities or applications most excite you right now? Where do you see the biggest opportunities for AI startups to innovate? A, I'm excited by the amplification of language and communication. I see huge opportunities for new types of content creation and for AI startups to innovate and evolve. Or B, I'm most excited by AI's potential to enhance human intelligence and productivity across sectors like healthcare, education, and sustainability. We're bringing back the Holiday Brothers for some thinking music as you try to guess which answer is from the real Reid. And don't forget to tell us why. All right, Holiday Brothers, take it away. Absolutely adore the Holiday Brothers. Thank you, guys. All right, the answer that came from the real Reid was response A. And now we've heard from both AI and from the real Reid. So let's bring the real Reid back to learn even more. Reid, was it awkward to see the AI's response to some of the questions that you had to answer for us?
No. I was reflecting on a couple different things in this process, and to all of our wonderful community and everyone else, this game was somewhat of a surprise to me too. So we're all getting the exposure to it. But there were a couple different thoughts. One thought is, there was already, to some degree, in the AI responses that you guys were doing, there was human in the loop, human amplification, because you guys were selecting, kind of questions and kind of what the summary or the kind of the answer would look like as ways of doing it. And so given such, it's not surprising that the AI answers also were in a vein that if you had said all of the AI answers, you'd said, well, Reid said this. You go, okay, well, that's plausible.
Right.
I could have certainly said those things. Right. It was not like, no, I wouldn't have said those. You could tell, like, very close watchers of me could go, well, he's more likely to say this kind of thing than that kind of thing, just because of the style at which I tend to operate and do things.
Yeah.
But it was not awkward, and partially because, like, it really is amplification intelligence, and it's really this question about how do we make ourselves better at all levels of scale, our personal scale, our organization, kind of our industry and society, and what are the opportunities to go do that? And I was like, ooh, maybe there's things like the background of my thought was like, oh, maybe there's things we could use this for, in Masters of Scale and other things. And maybe there's all the ways, maybe there could be like, you don't know Jack, maybe there could be a game show like this. Like, anyway, so it wasn't awkward as much as all of that kind of thing, kind of going through my brain as you were doing this.
Well, I think we just patented the game show title, so you can't take that one. Well,
you don't know Reid.
You don't know Reid. Oh, that's a good. Okay. Anyway,
Yes.
So let's tackle some more strategy session questions from our entrepreneurs. For our next question, we are going to Edna Martinson. Edna is a co-founder and CEO of Bottle Learning. Bottle Learning, not bottle, B-O-T-T-L-E, but B-O-D-D-L-E. Bottle Learning is an interactive game platform that helps equip teachers and parents to be better facilitators and identify learning gaps for grades K through 6. Edna was also, this is a huge shout out, also a member of our early stage cohort at the inaugural Masters of Scale Summit. She's joining us from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Edna, come join Reid.
Hi, Reid.
Edna.
Hi. So at Bottle, we integrate AI with our marketing and customer support. And we're continuing to develop the best internal strategy to collect data and implement this data with AI tools. But how can we create an internal culture of trust with employees so they feel motivated to use AI and really see it as a tool to bolster their work?
So, this is obviously a really important theme. And, as I had mentioned earlier, we're going to have some MOS episodes coming out on how business leaders can get AI integrated into their company and what does it mean for company culture and all the rest of the stuff. So I'm going to do some of that here too, but we do have forthcoming content. And for example, one very mild thing is whether or not the MOS episodes we hope will be great, or other things like having some shared discussions on the content is one way of doing it. Is like select some stuff, an article or something, and say, let's have a collective discussion on it, because then it's part of that. Now, one of the things that is going to be a central theme in the OS content we have coming is you communicate clearly what your goals are, because obviously part of what, that first fear response is, oh, you're going to outmode my job, or you're going to hire less people, or you're going to load me down with my work, or you're going to expect me to be proficient in a tool that I'm not proficient in, and all of the kind of the reactions that you get. And you want to say, okay, you want to get to people to say, hey, look, trust us, we're working on this together to be better on it, and we're all in this together, and actually we're going to be amplifying your capabilities, and we're going to be still hiring more people, and it's going to be a human amplification, not a human replacement kind of angle to this. And as I mentioned in the last question, get them to encounter some of the upsides and what could be interesting, because then when you're working on solving the downsides, they know what they're working towards, and they know kind of like, oh, that could actually be really great. Yes, let's solve what the downsides will be. And, to add some other ideas to kind of some of the things I mentioned earlier, it's like, is there some interesting opportunities of doing a kind of equivalent hack day with AI on kind of whether the marketing or customer service or content generation or other kinds of personal amplification into the work. And so people can go, kind of play with it and kind of see what the things could possibly be and see how they could be made better. Because like one of the things you would hope is happening in this is that there is essentially the work that they're doing is something where they go, ooh, I get to do more of the fun parts of the work, and more of the difficult parts of the work are made easier for me, so I could do more of the fun, and bringing both not just the efficiency, but also the interest and curiosity and joy to the work. And so, that might be something. So are any of these things resonant with things you have tried already? And has there been a positive result, a mixed result, a negative result? How is this kind of internal culture of trust, elevation going for you?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the efficiency, especially being, like a smaller startup team. Like it's always great when we can find ways to, make the team more efficient. And I think that is really what team members are drawn towards. So I agree with you in terms of like, as we're rolling this out, really doing it together as a team and looking at like, hey, which areas can we implement this in to make the work more efficient and to free up, folks' time to.
Yep. Well, thank you, Edna.
Thank you, Edna. Such a great question. So, Reid, for our last entrepreneur in this segment, we will hear from Ola Ogundero. Ola is the founder of Blue Tanks, a mobile app that helps electric vehicle users charge, earn, and trade. Blue Tanks is also part of the Techstars Alabama Energy Tech Accelerator. If you attended our June strategy session, you'll remember that Techstars CEO Maël Gavet was our guest host, and we're thrilled to have a Techstar member with us again today. He is joining us from Hoover, Alabama. Ola, I'm going to hop off.
Hi, Reid.
Hi, Ola.
Thank you. At Blue Tanks, data is central to how we run our app and tell our users where to charge their vehicles, be it the fastest or the closest charging station. And that's how we use our AI tools. But my team actually wrestles with the challenge of where to find data and also how to create system of checks and balances for the kind of data we have, especially when it gets to informing our customers where to go charge their vehicles. What do you think will be the best way forward with this?
Well, I don't know if I know the best way forward, but I'll kind of share some ecosystem kind of thoughts and then ask you a little bit of what you're doing, because I think it's a very interesting problem. And this is kind of part of the modern businesses, and each framework is how do we get the data to help us be kind of efficient and capable, and our customers to be efficient and capable, and how are we cycling through the data on that, and how do people feel good about it, contribute positively, feel safe, feel trust. All of this is kind of the new age for all businesses. It's kind of your question specific to you, but it's very, very general. And so you kind of look at kind of like what are the different kind of ecosystems of the data? Can you get users to contribute data voluntarily? Like one of the things that we did very early days in PayPal, and we were on eBay, is we'd ask people to say, give us your eBay login and password so that we would automatically update all of your auctions with a pay with PayPal, kind of thing to make it easy. And people had to trust us to do that because you're giving us your eBay credential and, all the ways to do that. Is there a way to kind of incent users to contribute? And if there's no, the automated ways are the easiest ones, but if there's not even like the most obvious one could be hey, we'll give you $1 off on your charging and so forth. Because if you put our app and run it on the background on your phone to say something like, hey, you were at this charger. How did the charger work for you? Was it a good charger, a bad charger? Was it a long line? Was it not a long line? And, something along the lines where I feel like, and I'm contributing this to my community. We have a community of helping each other know about the chargers, and I have a good status in the community through that. And again, here, the upside means is I'm benefiting from this data contribution much more than I'm risking anything. And this kind of thing is the ways of looking at where not just am I incented to do it, but I'm clearly seeing where my contributions to this community pile of data is good for me too. And so what have you tried so far, and what things are working, and what things you thought might work aren't working?
All right, thanks, Reid. You just broke down one of the next features we are about to deploy on my platform, and you explained it very succinct and clear. right now, one of the challenges that we've had so far is sending people to a particular station. The station might be down, right? Maybe the station is not working. It becomes a huge challenge. One thing we are doing is we are creating what we call the Blue Tanks community, where people can actually chat and say, you know what, hey, that's why I said you broke down the next phase of where we are going to. And ultimately, the only challenge I've had so far with going live with the feature is how do we ensure that people aren't just giving false information, right? And I mean, what you said is very key. If we can incentivize their decision to give us that kind of information, then whatever form of rewards they are getting, it's a way to contribute to the community. And using that, we can use that to help users reduce at least the likelihood of going to places that are not efficient or not working at different times. So you definitely did, break down and you spoke to some of the next phase we are going as a startup. Thank you for that.
Well, and thank you. And obviously the entrepreneur is always ahead of the cold start advice, but that's great to hear. And thank you, Ola.
All right. Thank you, Reid.
So many interesting ideas and just thoughts that I'll be taking away, Reid. Thank you, Edna and Ola, for your questions. But I think it's time for us to shake things up a little bit. What do you think?
Absolutely. You know, I'm all about embracing the infinite learner's mindset. So I want to turn the tables and ask some questions so I can learn more. As a builder of AI, it's immensely valuable to hear firsthand from champion users and early adopters of AI how the technology is being implemented in new and smart ways.
That's why we want to welcome Morgan DeBond to the virtual stage. Morgan is the perfect business leader to shed some light on creative use cases for AI. She's the founder and CEO of Blavity, an internet media company created by and for Black millennials. As a trusted voice in new media, her brands reach over 250 million readers each month. She is also the founder of Afrotech, the world's largest tech conference for the Black community. As we navigate the future of work, no one is more agile and attuned to the evolving business world. We couldn't be more excited to have her here. Please welcome Morgan DeBond. Hey, Morgan.
Hey, everybody.
Morgan, it's great to see you. I appreciate all the work you do. I know you're incredibly passionate about AI's potential. So the first thing I want to ask you, how are you currently using AI in your everyday workflow? What discoveries have you made?
You know, I think of AI as really like an additional assistant. I use it for almost everything. You know, I'm writing a company memo, thinking about our strategy, and I will, write out the actual memo and then drop it in AI to say, revise this. Now, I don't put any confidential information in there because we're not quite there yet, right? But I do use it for vocabulary and tone adjustments. And I even play with it sometimes where I'll say, write this like you're a Stanford business school teacher. Write this like Reid Hoffman would write this. And I try to change the tone and see like, how does that change the flavor or how, people might receive the words that I'm writing. I use it as I'm a creative, so I'm constantly thinking about new ideas. And I use it to say like, okay, this is a scenario. These are the 3 ideas I'm thinking. Give me some constructive feedback on how I might be able to improve it in this way. So I use it just really as a thought partner in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I find that I do very similar things. Like, so for example, in communications, it can cold draft communications or refine. I think you also gave a very good prompting tip. It's kind of which easy prompts give you something that's really good at helping amplify. And like a Stanford, GSB student or an artist or a playwright or how would Hemingway write this email? Whatever the kind of thing is. I think it shows that you're experimenting and using and this kind of thing. A research assistant for information, summaries, and highlights, catalyze discussion, solve a blank page. All of those things are kind of things. And by the way, there's the tools for confidential data, are fast coming.
They're coming.
Microsoft, a bunch of folks kind of working on, okay, how do we get this there? Because obviously a lot of important work works that way.
And even enterprise level tools where they're saying, okay, if you're in this, walled garden for a company, then now you can use this. Because it's so funny. I can tell when my team is using AI now. We had to train people and say, okay, make sure you're not actually pasting the entire data set into this right now, please. It's not ready yet.
especially when data sets have some degree of trust or confidentiality in them, their customer data or medical data or any of that kind of stuff. It's kind of like, no. Our first thing is always to preserve trust with the members of our ecosystem. So we don't, even if there wasn't a break, we don't want to even seem like there's anything we're doing that's a break as part of this. And, it's so essential to the work you do. What's been your most positive in this workflow surprise of, this amplification of me has been like, I'm going to keep doing that?
One, I am a terrible writer. I have great ideas. I know what I want to say, but it takes me a lot of energy to formulate email responses in a way that, is concise and direct and warm and all the things that a female CEO has to think about when you're doing correspondence. And having a tool that I can say, just this is what I'm trying to say, and then make it sound like this has helped me. It's relieved a lot of mental space in just my day-to-day decision-making. And that's just more space for me to actually do my job and not worry as much about how I'm coming off in communications, which as a leader, it is my responsibility, to think through that. But it is really helpful tool. And there's times when I forget it exists because it's not a part of my daily habits. I'm so excited for this next generation because it's going to be a part of their daily habit, right?
Yep.
So I'm like, oh yeah, I should open up this thing and, write it in here. And I really look forward to how AI is being integrated into these tools that we're using every day. So we don't have to all have these 5 to 10 different tabs of different software programs and sites that are better for this and better for this. So I think that's one thing that's really been helpful for me and just giving me more mental space to do the work that I love. And then the other thing is on the creative side, there's a lot of creative tools that I use that you can integrate different apps, right? We're getting to the point where different apps will integrate with each other. And so you can create an automated workflow. So for social postings or video editing or audio editing, click of a button, 2 or 3 apps will then communicate with each other through their APIs. And something that maybe would have taken us 2 days now takes us 10 minutes.
Exactly. And this, by the way, leads me to another question that I've been curious. I know that you're writing your first book. So hence the writing anxiety, the creativity. Did AI come in handy?
Yes.
Can you share any wisdom with our audience on this?
It's so interesting because we're right at that inflection point where most people still haven't totally used it in their day-to-day lives. So maybe a year ago, I was meeting with my publisher and I said, hey, do you guys have any policies on AI that I should know about? Are there any sort of guidance that I should know about? Because I want to follow all the rules. And they were like, no. And in my head, I said, oh, no, you need policy for this. I think if I asked them today, they'd probably give me a different answer. I would hope so.
They may have AI write their policy, but yes.
Right. Good point. Side note, I wrote an AI policy for our company and I said, yes, this policy was written by AI at the end of it. But I used it for a few different things, like chapter titles, for example, right? You write, this incredible chapter, and then you need to think of a 5 to 10 word little zhuzh that somebody will remember, and I used it for ideation for things like that, right? It's really a great ideation tool. Like I was saying earlier, you can play with the tone. You can say, make this witty, make this sassy, make this serious. And that's been really helpful just to get my brain out of writer's block when I'm ideating.
When I was doing impromptu, I discovered some similar things, although what I found is it was really good at kind of the blank page problem. It was really good at kind of what's the counter argument to this? Or what would someone ask me? What would be the hardest question someone asked me about reading this section? That kind of stuff. Right. Again, as you were saying earlier, it's kind of the research assistant, the personal intelligence, the kind of side companion.
Right.
I found that one of the things that was still really essential in the thing I was doing is, how do I say something surprising? Or what might initially seem contrarian, or like AI is amplification intelligence, not human replacement.
Right.
As a kind of an angle. Once making the point, it could help me refine them with the zhuzh. But the coming up with that and being kind of that side angle, it was one of the things that in the dance between me and GPT-4 was still really helpful. Kind of for me doing it. I wonder if did you have similar kind of?
Definitely. I would ask it, I would say, this is what I'm writing about. this is my story. And I would just put in the bullets of like, this is the story I'm about to tell. Like I told the story about how I was raising my first round of funding and, GV led my Series A and I was so nervous. And, I literally wrote out this bullet points of the story because to me, it's not proprietary. It's about to be in a book. And then I said, if you were, and then I described this persona, if you were someone who knew nothing about venture capital, someone who knew nothing about Silicon Valley, what questions would you still have? Or what questions would you ask, right? Because, we're so deep in the world that we live in every day, but the majority of people don't sit in, Silicon Valley and Crunchbase and VentureBeat and all these different things every single day, right? And to your point, it's like playing chess with yourself, right? You can say, well, what would be the next step as my opponent? And then, okay, what's my response to that? I think that AI is only as good as the prompter.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I think people are really intimidated by it, but I think the most creative people are going to be the ones who get the most out of it, as opposed to it being something that replaces. I think it's something that will really enhance the limitations of our capacity.
I 100% agree. It's the reason why I kind of get everybody into experimenting with it, try to figure out what the things to do. People frequently say, I did a prompt and it didn't get a good response. It's not very good. It's like, well, did you try variations in the prompts? And did you say, respond like Ernest Hemingway or respond like, William Faulkner or respond like, any number of people as kind of a way of doing this.
Or follow a pattern. Right?
Yes.
Follow this framework, follow this pattern, problem solution, story, right? You have to give it guidance.
Yeah, exactly. And think of it as a kind of a dance through it as a way of doing this. Well, this leads me to my next question, which is, closely tied to stuff that I think is where you and I first kind of tracked across. You're deeply engaged as well, but in the media ecosystem. What can you foresee as AI's impact on media in particular? From everything you've heard tonight about the future of work across various industries, is media destined for something different?
It's a really tough question, Reid. I mean, it's something that companies much larger than ours are struggling with quite a bit. I think that my perspective is that for media companies that solve a problem, I call it utility, right? Like a company that is providing content and information and entertainment that is a utility, meaning that people can actually use it, where there's value. I think that's never going to change, right? I think that companies that were relying on content farms, that were relying on just like the volume of things, that it could have been company A or company B that wrote that. We're seeing it. I mean, we're seeing the change. We're seeing the layoffs. We're seeing the companies go bankrupt. But there's some things that are universal, and staying connected to your community is universal. Having opinions and perspectives and being open to read other people's opinions or hear other people's opinions and perspectives will never go away. And so when I think about the future of Blavity and how we're talking to our team, it's like, okay, one, something has to train AI, right? And that's people. There's people behind it. And how do we impact or partner so that we're a part of that conversation as opposed to being left out of it? And I think the generation that built the first version of all these tools and products that we use, like Netscape and everything, we maybe weren't a part of it because there wasn't a lot of Black folks that were in technology at the time. And now there are, and we're growing. So how can we make sure that at the beginning of this inflection point, we're having the conversations? I mean, we are having these conversations, and then actually being a part of the engineering on how this stuff is built, so that inevitably, when there's content that's being produced by AI, at least we've had some influence on the inputs.
Yep.
Right.
And when I've been talking to various people around this, a couple months ago, I had a discussion with Van Jones about this and other folks. Part of what has been, because I was like, look, we got to make sure that this time the game plays differently.
Right.
And he's like, look, one of the really good things, you say, hey, this is a new game, a new setting of the table. That's perfect. That gives me and our communities a chance to come play.
Right.
And what we need to do is get into it and be at the table right now and be experimenting with it and be doing it, be starting companies, be using it for media stuff. And I think others are so right about that. And it's the right time to say, look, the music's going, grab a chair.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Don't wait to be asked.
And the
Like,
thing is
go
that
get the chair.
people of color oftentimes are the early adopters of technology, right? So it's not for lack of use, it's lack of access to get behind the scenes to build, right? So I think that's really where, for anyone who's watching this or listening, who's like, okay, how do I leverage this new technology? Figure out how to, don't be intimidated by the fact that it seems really complicated, because there's going to be an enormous new set of skills and jobs and roles and descriptions that are created at all of these big tech companies that we can't even think of yet.
Yep. Well, let's go a little deeper here, because this is super important. So in Afrotech, you've developed and nurtured such a valuable diverse community. I mean, as a technology, I think it's really important to constantly check in with users and explore, what am I not thinking about that I should be thinking while building and iterating? We had MOS episodes on this, and check your blind spot as an example. So Morgan, what are you hearing from your network about the future of work and the importance of diversity in AI's future that I should be mindful of?
Yes, Afrotech is right around the corner. We'll have over 20,000 people coming to Austin to learn about and get up to speed quickly on things like AI, VR, and actually so many different parts of the entire machine learning and augmented reality world. Last year, we spent a lot of time on metaverses and Bitcoin and everything. It's funny how these things change so quickly, right?
AI is going to be here for years.
Well, that's what they said about
I know, but
I agree with you. I agree with
yes.
you.
Yes.
I agree with you. It's already been here. It's been here. It's just now called AI, machine learning, all the things. I'm with you. I'm not trying to be a hater. But yes, in terms of the things that are important as it relates to AI in the Afrotech community, it's a couple things. One, sometimes the vocabulary, even to what we were just saying, machine learning, artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence, just making sure that we feel confident in the vocabulary, because sometimes in our community, if it's not something that we're around all the time, we might say, this just sounds like too much. And in reality, these things have been around for a very long time, right? The concepts and the foundations of really the logic that we're talking about has been around for many, many years. And we as users have been using it for many, many years, right? It's just now mainstreamed, and it has a really great branding go-to-market going on right now. So I try to make sure that Afrotech, and for those who are really passionate about equity in the AI space, is consider using a little less jargon and just get to the point, right? Let's not worry about sounding smart. Let's talk about what we're solving. The second thing is that some people have some fear around, how does this replace my job? How does this impact my value in the workplace? And I think that we should reframe that conversation to really be, how does it accelerate your job? How does it accelerate your value in the workplace? How much faster can you reskill yourself? How much faster can you understand and digest new concepts and do research so that you can spend more time on that your code of genius, right? And I think that leaders should be proactive in having the conversation. I see too many leaders lean back because it's new for them. And one of my goals with Afrotech this year is to just really push people to think about, how are you putting this in your daily life? How are you putting this in your workflows? And lead by example.
I think you're exactly right. And I think part of the thing that, I encourage everyone is just whatever question occurred to you in your business work, go do it. Like you said, it's almost like that, the little game that they invented for this, which is which one's the AI read and which one's reading. I think X, cool, well, go try it and see what comes out and start learning where it's useful and where it's not useful as part of it. Right. And I think that experimentation, and don't just preach it, don't just talk it, walk the walk, right? Mm-hmm. Be the walk as you're doing. And I think that's exactly right. Plus,
and play with it.
Yeah, ditch the jargon, engage.
Right. Exactly. I talk to a lot of executives who are thinking about AI, just like we were saying. How would you recommend that business leaders think about reskilling and retraining their technical workforce, given that, there's software engineers, I've seen this all over the internet, who are inputting their code to get it fixed into AI systems. And frankly, plenty of software companies are saying, yeah, we're going to just integrate AI into it anyways. We're going to solve it for you. You don't even have to open up another tab. So how would you suggest, first let's start with technical folks and technical leaders, that they reskill and educate their workforce so that, people can continue to have these jobs and stay engaged?
It's a great question. And it's also part of what I love about what you're doing is it's kind of this human amplification and kind of like, what do we do? And it's actually about how we're better. And sure, there will be some job replacement, but there's going to be a lot of job transformation. And that part of that job transformation, AI can also be the solution, not just the problem. You say, well, okay, so AI is going to superpower customer service people. Maybe we'll have fewer customer service people. What happens to the other customer service people? Well, AI can possibly help them find other kinds of jobs and say, oh, are you good at sales? Are you good at marketing? Are you good at other kind of communication? Are you good at account management? How do you learn that job? How do you do that job? What are the ways to integrate into a workflow in terms of doing that? Obviously, there's also even kind of AI as a way to upskill and reskill as you're doing, and also help you do the job. And I think that's the kind of thing that we're going to find in this. Part of it is there's such a gold rush with it that relatively few of the companies are doing kind of good apps on this stuff yet, because they're just kind of working on the pure AI general purpose. So right now, what people need to do is kind of hack it a little bit. Go use, try 3 or 4 different, kind of AI assistants. Try, GPT, ChatGPT, try Bing Chat, try Inflection, try Claude, try Bard, try, and see them, how they play in, and see which things. And one thing to experiment a little bit on this is to experiment with what is known as meta prompts. So I really think it's prompt directing versus prompt engineering, because part of the kind of the way of this kind of experimentation, don't give them the answer, step them to the answer, like as education, like say, well, the answer to this problem is X, and say, well, the answer walk them through the steps to this problem, like help them step through to this problem, and AI can actually do that, and that's part of use of the meta prompts. And anyway, so I think we'll be hacking it and experimenting a little bit, like what Saul Khan's doing.
Yeah,
I think that's the way we're going to be solving this problem. I don't know if you agree.
No, I think that's really interesting. And I think really, you just wrote out a whole business plan for a company that could very easily be worth $100 million one day. So definitely credit us. Give us a chance to angel invest. But seriously, right? Like all these platforms that are already existing for reskilling, for training, for self-development, for learning and development could also be adding their own AI mechanisms that help people get faster through whatever learning and development and professional development they're trying to go after. So I do agree with that. And I think, I do wish and hope to influence companies to make it part of their responsibility as well, because at the end of the day, it's much cheaper to retrain people. And there's a limited amount of people who have 10 years plus experience in some of these new technologies because they're new. So it's already a really tough competition for this pool.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, Morgan, I'm so glad we got the time to sit down and strategize together. Let's bring Jodine back.
Yes, Morgan and Reid, that was so good. I was over in the back just taking tons of notes. So interesting, Reid, the whole meta prompting that you were just discussing. I'm thinking about when we were kind of trying to figure out the timeline for Masters of Scale Summit. And I actually prompted, I was trying to teach chat to give me that timeline. It was so interesting, giving it all the different verticals within the live event, like what to do, how long it's going to take. So much information. And yes, if anyone comes up with a business idea from today's conversation, credit the 3 of us here, please.
Totally.
Morgan, I am looking forward to seeing what comes out of Afrotech. Every year you do it. Every year it's just elevating for our community. So thank you for what you do. And thank you for the wisdom that you shared with us tonight. Reid, we can't do Masters of Scale without you. Thank you for just being generous with your time and for helping and elevating our entrepreneurs and our community. I appreciate you both.
Thanks, Jodine.
Yes, this has been an amazing show. Some brilliant questions, such valuable insights around such a pressing topic. We want to thank you, Cynthia Lowe from Capital One Business, for joining us this evening. Thank you to the entire team at Capital One Business for being such an extraordinary premier brand partner and being so generous with our patrons of entrepreneurs. We love co-elevating with you. And speaking of co-elevation, I'm excited to share something new. The Capital One Business Hub. It's a source for educational, on-the-go content aimed to spark new and innovative thinking in teams and companies of all sizes. Please feel free to check it out, and we'll share more information from the Masters of Scale team about the Capital One Business Hub. Huge thank you to Morgan DeBon again for joining us, again to our host, Reid Hoffman. Thank you so much for our participants. All of them asked such good questions. An epic gift box will be from Capital One Business and Masters of Scale will be heading your way. Thank you to the entire Masters of Scale team for putting this event together with our fearless leader, Chineme Ezekwena, and our partners at Brand Live. Thank you to all of you at home for joining us tonight. We love to have you here and hope you will continue to be part of the Masters of Scale community. We're also at Masters of Scale on all social media platforms. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, as well as following us on TikTok. Yes, we have a TikTok. To receive Masters of Scale right in your inbox every week in a digestible newsletter full of insights, tips, and news, go to mastersofscale.com/subscribe to sign up. We are honored to join you on your entrepreneurial journey. I'm your host, Jodine Dorsey. Thank you for watching.
This is Masters of Scale.
Hey, bye.